Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a Dreamweaver site. Find somewhere on your hard drive where you want to store your site. I like to create a folder called Sites and do it inside of there. That way when I make multiple sites I know where to find them all. Then I go to servers. You will be given the information that you need to fill out this field. Make sure that your username is at the beginning of your domain, because a subdomain would have been set up for you. Whatever your username is, .stoutwebtech.com. Then do a test. If everything's right, it will show up like that. In advanced, if we are doing PHP, go ahead and set your server to PHP MySQL. Click Save and set it up for remote and testing. Alright, now I've gone ahead and set up a new PHP document and saved it as index.php. I've given it a h1 and I have given it a title, just because those are standard things that you need to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and save and synchronize that to the server, and then I will go ahead and preview that in the browser. And that's what my page looks like, so that I know that I've got my connection, it's working, and I've been able to go out and upload files to the internet. So for now we're going to go ahead and close this document because I'm not going to be using it for a while. Now the next series of steps are going to be first to create a database connection that will allow us to connect to the database and pull information to a page. We're going to create a page first because you have to have a PHP page open in order to work with database connections. So we're going to create that page. We're going to connect database that page to a database. We're going to pull a separate record set that allows us to pull only a certain set of records from the database, and then we're going to display them on a page. And what that page is going to become is a reference for us, so that we have the ability to see what's happening as we're interacting with the database. Later on, it also allows us to create, it'll give us a place to create new new records for the database, update existing ones, and delete records from the database. So we'll go ahead and create that document, and I'm going to go this way this time, and I'm just going to call this customer records. So I've given it a H1 and a title, and I'm going to save that document. I'm going to put it right at the root, and I'm going to make sure it's a PHP document. Now let's connect to our database. Now there's a couple ways that you can show this window. You can either choose to show your databases by simply clicking on that, and that brings it up, or you can choose a different workspace layout such as App Developer that shows those, whichever way you're comfortable with. So there's a couple things it wants us to do. It wants us to make sure we've got the site set up, which we've already done, and along with that you'll see step number 3. It says to set up a testing server. So you've got your testing server set up, you've got your site set up, and then it wants us to choose a document type, which is PHP. Now what should happen at that point is this plus sign should become visible. That means that it likes what you've done. If for some reason you've taken those steps and that plus sign doesn't show up, go ahead and close Dreamweaver and restart it. Sometimes you have to do that. Now what we're doing is we're making a connection to the server. So what we want to do is just at this point enter a friendly name. And you will need to pull the information that was sent to you for the MySQL server, your username and your password for that database in this location. I'll go ahead and get that stuff entered, and then we'll go forward. Once you've got that information in here, then you can come down and click on this select, and what it should do is go out to that database. It's going to move some files up and down to the server to make sure that it's able to interact. Test the connection, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to synchronize the site to make this happen. Actually, I had misspelled the name of the host, so we're not going to have to synchronize that. So when you collect that, then you'll see the name of the databases that have already been set up if they have been on the SQL server. You select the one that you want to use, and then you click OK. Now what you can do is test that, and it's telling me it doesn't like my connection name. There's certain characteristics. So now I test it, and it has successfully made it. And so that's the first important step. Now watch what happens when I save this. When you watch over here, when I save this, it's going to create a folder called Connections, and it's going to put a document in there, a PHP document that contains the information I just entered into that, and it'll put that at the root. You need to leave that in there because that's how it will communicate with the server as we go forward. And you'll also see that it showed up here. So now that I have that database connection, I can go in there and I can look to see what tables are available to me, and that's in there. And the other thing that you can do, and I'm gonna be using the customers table, so I want to look at the fields that are in there. And what I'm looking for is you're going to see this key on one of your records. What that is the primary key for that table. And in my case, it's customer number. So I'm going to want to remember that because that is the field that is absolutely unique within that table and that allows us to connect to various tables. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to create a set of bindings. So now let's set up some bindings, and bindings, as you recall, are a way of pulling certain pieces of information out of the database, limiting it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a record set, and what we want to do is I'm going to be working with, I'm just going to call it record set 1. I choose the database connection that I've set up, and right now I only have one connection, so that's the only one that's optionable. If there were others, we could choose them there. I can choose the tables. I'm going to use customers just to keep it simple, and I'm going to select all of the records. I could go through and select only certain of the fields to display. For instance, let's just take out the credit limit and sales rep employee numbers. So I'm going to select everything else. And what I did there is just a shift click to the last one, and that shows everything in between. You can do a control click to turn them off or on, and again I want all of those. I'm not going to be doing a filter right now, but I could filter it so by customer number. We'll do that a little bit later on. So now what I want to do is I want to test this, and it brings me back records, and you can see that it groups them in groups of 25. So I click OK, and then I click OK again, and what that does is it gives me a bindings over here called record set 1, because that's what I called it. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to pull records from that bindings, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Insert tab, and I'm going to go to the database or the data location, and what I want to do here is I just want to choose from this dynamic data, and I'm going to do a dynamic table, and then when I click that, it opens up reference to the bindings that I have. I could choose from any of the bindings that I'd set up, but again I only have one, and so I choose that. I can choose how many records I want to display or all the records. I'm going to do 10 at a time just so that we can see some other things going on. Then I click OK. Now that creates a customer records page. There's a couple things I want to do. I want to create a place where I can insert new record, because we're going to be doing that in a little while, and we will get to that. But the first thing we want to do is go ahead and make this so that it's usable. And one of the things that I need to do is, because there's more than 10 items and we're going to be adding things that won't show up on the first page, I'm going to add a navigation region to this. And right now you'll see that under record set paging. It's going to be a little bit different. Every version of Dreamweaver that I've looked does this a little bit different, so you may need to look at that, because this is an emerging thing. So I chose record set navigation bar, choosing from record set 1, and then I click OK. Then based upon where my cursor was, it adds all this extra code that allows us to navigate to the first, previous, next, or last records, and those will only show up when they're pertinent. So what I want to do now is I want to save all my files, and I want to synchronize with the server, because if I don't synchronize with the server, these connections aren't going to go up. So I'm going to synchronize the entire site, and I'm going to put the files, and that will move the records up. Once it has done that, that will allow us the opportunity to, we can look at this a couple ways. You can choose the live view, and this is somewhat limited, but what it will do is it will show you that it's pulling down records, but it won't let you navigate to those additional fields. So in this case, we're going to go to it and we're going to look at it in the browser. And what that does is it brings up this record, and you'll see that it's got this next and last. So we start with record customer number 103. We click on next, and you see that these change, because now there is information that from the first page, last page, previous. So that's just a dynamic way of displaying data in there, and those tools are built into PHP to let you automatically do this. So we're going to be using this customer records file quite a bit. So let's in the next set of videos we'll explore how to add records, update records, and delete records.